What's up, DragtheBar? It's Q-Tip, and I'm starting the series with full ring micro stakes here at Black Chip Poker. I haven't made a series on black chip full ring micros, so I thought I'd go ahead and tackle that. And actually, it's been a long time since I put out any full ring material. So we're gonna do that here, and I'm just gonna play two tables because I really like two-tabling when I'm making videos. I feel like I can focus a little bit more and talk a little bit more about what's going on. But keeping with the theme here at the micros, so we got this guy here that can donk out 3 streets with ace high, and this guy seems pretty sticky with his ace high as well. I'll put a little through. And here we're going to be in position, and so I want to go ahead and build a pot. And actually, I want to talk about this spot right here. This is a really good little topic for discussion. I'm going to go ahead and call this off. Likely will be in. I was thinking he'd likely to have some good draw or something, but oops. Well, this guy's gone, so we're not going to have time to talk about him. And it looks like this table's breaking up. So a lot of action here at the start. I want to talk about that hand. Just I'm going to bet 10 cents here and get at this table here. Okay. And let's talk a little bit about stuff. Okay. I'm rejecting some other tables here, and then we'll get back on track. Okay. First thing I want to talk about with that 10-8. Boy, I tell you what, I gotta get off of all these waiting lists. I just put myself on waiting list for full ring micro stakes, and they're popping up all over the place. Okay. So the guy completes there in the small blind, and pre-flop, I guess let's talk a little bit about pre-flop. If you watched many of my videos, this will be a bit of a review, but the bread and butter spot of poker, as Tommy Angelo likes to term it, is being in a raise spot in position with the initiative. And the initiative, of course, just means that you're the aggressor, and your opponent is the one that's kind of guessing about what's going on. When someone comes into our small blind like that, we have the opportunity to do a couple things. Obviously, we can just check behind and see a flop, which is not terrible. I mean, it was with an awful hand, I guess. You can play post flop, and maybe he checks the flop, and you can bet and win it there. But against a player who's going to have a lot of random cards, always remember that it's pretty hard to hit the flop. To hit a pair, it's you're only going to do that about a third of the time, and which means 2/3 of the time you're going to be kind of staring at it and wondering what to do. Well, being out of position with that is life is a little bit more difficult, and so instead of just checking, you get the opportunity to tell you what, let's make a bet here, 55 cents. And the reason I'm making it 55 cents, let's see, $1.50. I think I'll just make it 2.40. We'll put him in right here on the turn. I don't think he's ever going to fold a 4 flush. Probably never going to fold an ace. Might have a 6 or 2 that maybe I could have squeezed some money out of, but kind of going for the bigger portions of his range there. I'm not sure, like if he had a gutter, like King Jack or King Queen or Queen Jack, if he'd call something smaller. But reject this. So anyway, I prefer a raise in those spots. so I can get into that bread and butter spot where I build a bigger pot to take on the flop, or I can just have him fold right there pre-flop, and I don't allow him to see a flop with his hand, which is fine with me. I take the money pre-flop, and then I can get in the driver's seat and I can do what I want post-flop. So a lot of times actually I raise a little bit larger than pot there against those types of players, so just to win a bigger pot pre-flop. And you know what? If I want them to fold, raising larger normally will accomplish that. Now they're on the flop. I guess let's we had that 10. What was it? 10-3. I guess did we have? Let me see. Let me get just two. Last 2 hours. I'm going to change this. Oops. I'm just down here. We're going to pull that hand up and go over it. Here's our monster with 3-10 offsuit. There we go. Of course, we didn't know what he had. So he limps in with his 5-8, and we raise with the best hand, actually. Make it 14 cents. And the thing here is, so he donks out for 4 cents. Most of the time, if somebody has a strong hand, they'll tend to play a little bit more trappy with it. So if you have pocket 5s or 5-6, pocket 6s, pocket 10s, they a lot of times will go for a check raise and try to kind of, as I say, trap you, get you to bet, and then get some money in. But it's pretty rare actually that somebody donks small with them, because that's kind of keeping the pot small, and most of the time with bigger hands, people kind of want to get paid. And so I didn't expect him really to have a monster here the way he did it, and I raised for value really at that point, thinking I probably had the best hand, and there's a lot of draws in here. A player like this probably isn't going to fold like 8-9 or 7-8 and 3-4 and 3-7, 4-7. I mean, they're all in there with this type of player, as well as he's probably playing close to any 2 suited, which means he's going to have in the neighborhood of 50 combinations of flush draws there to go along with all those other draws. And then, of course, you can have the bottom pairs and middle pair type of stuff. So it's we have a lot of value here. And then once we go ahead and raise and he ships, I expected him to have something more than bottom pair. Didn't really see him doing that, but we just obviously didn't know much about him at the time. But given all those draws and things, I think we have well over the amount of equity that we need to call here. Probably in the low 40s or something, and I'd say we're probably ahead of his overall range. We got 18 hands. This guy's been pretty tight. And this is actually a pretty dry flop, but I'm going to go ahead and bet 20 cents here against a lot of calling range. If this guy calls, if indeed he is tight, I think probably some fair amount of turn and river cards that I can go ahead and bet to get him off of his hand. This guy is the one that'll be interesting, but you do have straight draws and flush draws in here that make this a little bit dry. And now the question is, with a small raise like that, it looks like he would be willing to ship it in here. We don't know anything about him, so I'm just gonna go ahead and fold this. There's a lot of times that I would actually re-raise there once I got to know a guy, because a lot of times when we flopped a boat or something there, they would play it a little bit slower. But we don't know if this guy can have suited hands and things like that. A really tight player in full ring is not going to have a lot of suited hands in that spot. Probably not going to be calling with like Queen 10 suited in middle position to an under the gun open. So a lot of times what you'll find is somebody sitting there with like pocket 8s or pocket 7s. It's just kind of making a small raise to get a feel for where they are in the hand. And a lot of times you can re-raise and take it down, but until you get information, you're better off just not being stubborn and just getting out of the way. had a coaching session this morning, and some good topics came up. This particular student, I guess I'll just fold here, has been break even for quite some time, and we talked about the biggest keys to playing winning poker, and the first key for sure is table selection. The truth is, you don't have to be very good at poker to win. You just have to be better than the people you're sitting with. And so table selection is always key when you're looking to win money playing cards. And then the second key after that, once you do find good tables, is to be able to play really well against the fish. And a lot of times when I'm coaching guys, I find that they're not very proficient at filleting the fish, if I can use that term. And one of the key spots I see them missing out on are the high card hands. I guess we'll go ahead and toss a raise in here and talk about this spot here a little too. But a lot of times we stay away from hands like King 5 or whatever, Queen 7, stuff like that, and we tend to think about them as reverse implied odd hands. This guy doesn't have much money, so go ahead and throw it away. But against against a calling station, it's actually a pretty high implied odds hand, where if you do flop top pair, you can get a ton of value against a loose passive calling station. So I always encourage my students to get involved with calling stations, with really any Broadway. I'm obviously depending on what the circumstances is, but if you can get a hand cheaply, or even make something of an isolation raise in position with really any queen, king, or ace, and sometimes I'll even go ahead with jacks. It can be a really profitable situation for you. And if we get a chance here, I'll go over that. I missed that hand there. This guy do check folded. I don't think I'm going to bet here. I'll throw one out here. Make it like 17 cents. On a flop like this, probably don't have to make it very expensive. We got a huge value with the backdoor nut, backdoor nut flush. Not really. This type of flop here, unless your opponent's going to have a lot of overcards, is not a great one to see bet on against a lot of people's range. You just, they're going to have some suited connectors in there. If they can have some pocket pairs. Even sometimes when people don't want to fold overcards, you're just not going to see a whole lot of folds on a flop like that. $32 hands now on this guy. He's been a whopping 9-6. So we'll give him some respect. And this guy's been really quite tight too. But I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet here. And one reason I 3-bet here is it's a little counterintuitive when you get a guy that this tight. This tight, he's only played one hand and 16 or something. But this is a really common spot for people just to kind of raise any two cards, even tight players. It's very often in full ring, and obviously I don't play a lot of 2 cent, 4 cent, but after you get some hands on somebody, so he had actually folded one small blind. You can see that on the top right, his attempt to steal in the small blinds 50%, 1 out of 2. So I must have folded one to us before. So So here's a spot here with Queen 4, where, again, it's only 5 hands, but if I could flop a queen against a loose passive calling station, that's the top pair hand. As I said, you can really get a lot of value from them. When your opponent's calling with not only top pairs, but middle pairs, bottom pairs, gut shots, open enders, flush draws, all those that go in there, you're really sitting at the very top of his range. And as well, since you have top pair, that means he has fewer of those top pairs, which means more of his range is made up of the weaker hands. And a lot of times you're sitting there, with, especially on the turn, it's kind of a shame. A lot of times guys will bet top pair against a loose passive calling station on something of a dry board, even if it wasn't a dry board. And then they end up checking the turn, which is just terrible news. They're looking kind of control the pot and things like that, but you're just so far ahead of their range. I mean, a lot of times in turns and spots like that, you'll have 70% or 80% equity against somebody's total range there, and you're really passing up on a beautiful opportunity to grab a lot of big blinds from a player, as well as get him while he's still drawing with all of those hands. So here we have a raise here after he limped in. Maybe we can learn something in this hand if we happen to make it showdown. 20 cents is the magic number. Oh, we're not going to see any cards. So I guess I'll fold this. For a little bit tighter player on the button, I would go ahead and raise that. And anytime you're going to play a hand pre-flop, and you're thinking about raising, one of the first questions you want to ask yourself is, how likely am I just to take the blinds? And if you're pretty likely, we had like a 13-10 here in the big blind, which was nice. But the other two players were kind of looser, and so it makes it a little less likely we just take the blinds. And then if that's not, if that answer is not really likely, then I'm just thinking about how aggressive this player is. Like I can bet here. The truth is, I'm going to fold most of everything that I beat anyway. But that's not always the reason just to automatically check. You also want to think about how aggressive your opponent is. Do you give them an opportunity to bluff you off the best hand really often? And it's questionable with this player, but I'm really not giving him away much equity at all here by checking. If I had pocket, like say 7s or 5s or something, I'd probably bet here on the turn. But seeing that my hand is as strong as it is, I'll go ahead and check. I'm going to be curious if he bets here on the river. I'd be really interested in calling, and I'll tell you why. We don't know much about this player yet, but so he checks the flop, and then there on the river that flush card comes in, and he didn't bet the flop, which kind of like, if he wanted to semi bluff a 4 flush, he'd probably do that, on the flop. Then he bets the turn, and let's say, like if he had an ace here, say he has like ace 10 or something, and he doesn't bet the flop, and then bets kind of smallish on the turn, half pot. It kind of tells me he's looking for something of a smaller pot and isn't feeling real comfortable with his hand. And a lot of times, when that flush comes in, even though, if he's a decent hand raider, maybe he might be aware of that. I might not have a flush here really often, but poor players don't think like that really. So I would expect most guys here, when that flush draw comes in, to be checking back top pair type hands, because they're afraid of the flush type of stuff. And so you'll want to take notes on guys to see how well they value bet. So here we have 7-10. I'll just toss it. As I said, if I had queen 7 or something there, I'd probably play it with this guy here, and I just just hop in until I can see that this guy can actually fold a little bit post flop. So like here, there in the cutoff, here, there, in the cutoff, you know, I only got queen 10. We get a tight player on our left. I'll treat the cutoff just like a button with a guy like this, and we got another tight player kind of here. So I'll take some liberties, even here in this spot. Well, we could raise just for instructional value. But with these two tighter players here on our left, it can really open up the doors for you. And allow you to get much more loose and aggressive, you know, in spots like the hijack or middle position. But watch, of course, what type of players you have here in the blinds. If I had really loose players, I probably wouldn't be raising 3-7. And here I'm just going to bet to kind of protect my 7 there. It's a pretty vulnerable hand. And we'll throw a small bet out here, half pot or whatever. See if we can just pick it up. Okay, so here I'm going to throw out one more bet. I'm probably going to make it 20 cents. Well, this is interesting. Don't know much about this guy. I'm not going to try to get him to fold an ace or anything like that. It's a pretty good card to give it a shot. And this might actually be worth it at this point. He puts out something of a blocking bet. I am going to go ahead and go all in here. It's probably, I'm just going to check back here. Probably time bank it. You know, you don't normally want to be. This guy's not really like a loose passive calling fish. I'm going to go ahead and raise. See if we can get him to fold an ace. It's not really something I'd recommend at microstakes until you get to know a player to see if they'll actually fold, you know, an ace there. There he happened to have what we were trying to represent. But it's all right. So our instructional 3-7 offsuit hand turned into a naughty one. Oh, what a shame. This little fish fold with our pocket aces. Here with the 8-7, so you see that guy had 8-9 suited of diamonds, and even if he didn't have diamonds, I would anticipate him calling sometimes with I'm sorry, 8-9 suited of diamonds. So we won with our 7, and so that turn bet there was some pretty good value. If I had a better kicker with that 7, I probably would have bet even larger. You know, if I had something like Queen 7 or King 7 or something like that, because I'm just that much farther ahead of his total range. He's got a lot of draws down in there, and I'm not really all that concerned about an ace. Sometimes I'll have him, and actually on the river, if I had a hand as strong as King 7, I might even consider a small bet, like a third of the pot or something like that. What I've been doing is when somebody catches me bluffing, I throw a little red chip on them. So you see that guy kind of made a half pot bet with his straight, and I think I won't raise with this particular hand. Hey, don't break up on us. Hop on the waiting list real quick and see, just in case this falls apart. With that fish there, I think we should be okay. He probably doesn't want to leave. Oh, actually, I think we got our old buddy must have left. This guy's a little looser, but the hand's pretty strong. Well, just thinking about a 3-bet pot, and he was out of position in that other one, but did play pretty straightforwardly with just a check fold. I'll post a small blind, steal his money, try to steal his money, and then we'll sit in another one. Didn't work. Okay. We got another one for us. New people. Yeah, so the easiest way to think about when you have a hand like that, say like that King 7, that's middle pair. You know, someone could have every pair, every split pair that's on a flop. So you got 3 of them. You know, if you had the exact middle, you know, say middle pair and an exact middle kicker. I'm actually going to raise here. This is kind of my default when someone limps on the button and I have a nice hand like Queen 10 offsuit, something like that, with some good high card value that'll actually, he showed us one of his cards, it's a 2. Actually, a lot of c-betting boards will be a semi-bluff anyway. And you see us do a lot of raising in spots like this. And the thing is, you know, you make a pot size raise, you need your opponent to fold 67% of the time, at least, you know, to be plus EV or better. And that's if you have no equity post-flop. Got you a decent hand against our body. I'll check raise here. I'll be pretty happy to stack it after what he's seen from me. I say pretty happy. It's not, I mean, not clicking my heels or anything, but so he actually overbets. Interesting, isn't it? Shifted pretty quick, so that's bad news normally. This guy's gonna just love us. So this guy just raised our c-bet. We'll see what he's got here. So I'm going to stay away from this one with the loose player kind of on the bottom with 5-4. At spots like that, when you hit top pair, top kicker, and kind of draw a board when somebody overbets, most of the time that was a little uncharacteristic. I mean, I guess with the draw a board, it makes some sense. A lot of times players will overbet a hand when they're scared of what the board looks like. You know, just to charge people and stuff like that. But more often than not, when somebody overbets, they're not really looking for a call. This guy actually posted strong hand here in position. And so something like that, someone's got top set and you got top pair, top kicker. After they've seen you get a little crazy and stuff like that, I think is just a cooler. You get your money in, and that's that. Oh, yeah, so we were talking about, so you have middle pair, middle kicker on a board, you know, with 3 cards, which means, and if the guy can have every pair that there is, and say he doesn't play any draws or anything, that means you're smack dab in the middle of his range. And so as you push that kicker higher and higher, you obviously, you know, get more in front of his range. And then, let's see, we got, you know, this real tight guy here to our left. I find that people are normally pretty tight to my left in these type of situations because I'm normally bombarding people with raises here. I'm going to 3-bet here. Same scenario. Need him to fold 67% of the time, and we could actually here hover. He's had one opportunity to steal a small blind and he didn't take it. Pretty jarry board here, and I'm actually going to bet like 30 cents. And I'm going to raise here too. So here he doesn't raise, and I think that's really a good spot to, let's see if I make it a buck. Make it 80 cents. When he doesn't raise on the flop, on a flop like this, I don't anticipate a tight player to have a really strong hand. So I side that so I can kind of pot the river here, and we're going to see if we can get away with trying to play against a bell-shaped range here against a tight player. Talk about this in my book, Whole Card Confessions. We'll see if we can get away with it here. I tried to size that on the turn so that we would have what we have left here on the river, and you can see he's thinking about it. So he's uncomfortable, which is good. The thing is, I would kind of expect him there to have something like tens, something like that maybe. I'm not sure a guy like this would ship those pre-flop. I'm obviously done here in the situation where we see bet and it didn't work. But on a queen, or 7-8 suited, let's take a look at it. So queen 7, you got two suits. The connectedness of the board, so it's a most people look at this and pretty draw heavy flop. And most of the time, a really tight player will want to I'll raise this nice hand here. We'll be able to get in position. I'll turn this away. Most of the time, a tight player is going to want to get the money in quick if he's got really much of anything in that spot. Certainly, if he had pocket sevens, pocket eights, or maybe not necessarily a queen. It's funny here. So he quick check calls. I mean, he's going to have some jacks, he's going to have some flush draws, and it's actually a fair number of straight draws in here. But I think I'm going to check, and then I'll have to decide what I want to do on the river. Like this particular river, if he were to bet, I might actually call because I don't think he'd value bet with the jack. But I think we actually have the best hand a fair amount of the time here. What do you know? We do. And I don't know, that ace might be a good bluffing card actually. Just because we have the best hand fairly often doesn't mean necessarily to check. We're going to go ahead and take the, make sure there's no like really loose players behind us and see if we can get heads up in position again with a high card. And I'll go ahead and make a bet here too. Probably again we'll make it in the neighborhood of 20 cents. A lot of overcards we can fold here, and obviously a lot of other cards can call, but we have equity against a calling range. Now, whether or not we want to bet here is the question. I think I'm actually going to check, and maybe I'll bluff the river. But the reason is just because this board is so dry that I don't think I'm going to get him to fold the turn. I mean, he's obviously not going to fold any 8. A lot of 9s are going to have straight draws and 6s and 7s, and so we're just going to go ahead and fold here. And I'm just going to assume that he's got a decent hand at that point. But a perfect card there on the river would have been something like a king, a queen, or a jack, something like that. That would now make like a 9, a third pair instead of a second pair, and then we could go ahead and bluff at that point. But given the board there, once he calls the flop, I really doubt he's going to fold the turn. Even though it is an ace, it's just, even though that's a nice bluffing card, the texture is not one where you're going to see somebody fold much of what they called with on the flop. And again, same scenario here. Lots of hands we can get to fold. So a really quick snap call. And then another 8 comes. I think that's pretty good news for us. Now here I actually will fire the turn, and I'll have to decide what I wanted to do on the river if it were to come to that. But hey, cool. I think we had some good things to discuss. I could certainly think of some questions if I were watching this video. So if you have them, hit me up in the forum, and I'll catch you in part 2. Thanks for watching.